Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Are you progressing, or are you just circling the same mountain? Too many people are floundering in the land of the familiar, trapped by comfort, bound by routine, and paralyzed by the fear of the unknown. Let me tell you the truth. Comfort is a liar. Familiarity feels safe, but it is often the graveyard of destiny. Your purpose is not tied to your past, it's tied to your potential. And potential doesn't live in the place where you've always been, it lives in the place you're called to go. When God called Abraham, he said, "Get out from your country, from your kindred, and from your father's house to a land I will show you." He didn't give him GPS coordinates, he didn't lay it all out. But he required one thing: move. Some of you are waiting for perfect clarity before you take action, but here's the secret: clarity doesn't come before movement. Movement creates clarity. Comfort is a trap. It doesn't announce itself as danger, it doesn't roar like a lion, it whispers, it makes promises it never keeps. It convinces you that the predictable is better than the possible. Comfort says, stay here, it's safe, don't risk it, don't stretch, don't change. But comfort never tells you what it's costing you. It never tells you what you're losing while you're standing still, what's slipping through your fingers while you hesitate to grow. Comfort feels like a warm blanket on a cold morning, but it's the same blanket that keeps you from rising and running toward your purpose. The real danger with comfort is that it hides in plain sight. It looks responsible, it sounds wise, it feels like peace, but it's really paralysis. The person who stays in the familiar just to avoid fear is already losing. Fear doesn't defeat you, stagnation does. And that stagnation is usually disguised as comfort. People convince themselves they are being careful or patient, when in reality, they're procrastinating under the mask of comfort. It's subtle. You stay in a job you hate because it's secure. You hold on to relationships that drain you because they're familiar. You bury your gifts because you're afraid they won't be good enough. You settle, and every time you settle, a piece of your purpose suffocates. Comfort kills dreams quietly, not with a bang, but with a whisper that says, you've got time, when you really don't. Every second you spend hiding in comfort is a second you're not building your destiny. Destiny is demanding. It asks you to move. It requires risk. It calls you out of the boat into the water, but many never step out because they confuse comfort with safety. Safety is about protection. Comfort is about preference, and preference, when worshipped, becomes prison. It's not that comfort is bad, rest is good, reflection is necessary. But when comfort becomes your decision-making system, your compass is broken. You weren't created to survive, you were created to multiply, and multiplication never happens in the familiar. Think about every major transformation in history, every great innovation, every business break. Through none of them were born in comfort. They came from people who got uncomfortable, who faced rejection, who walked into uncertainty with nothing but vision and grit. Comfort will let you build a life that's tolerable, but purpose calls you to a life that's transformational. You can have ease or you can have elevation, but rarely both at the same time. The moment you make peace with comfort as your guide, you declare war on your potential. You were never meant to camp out in just enough. There's more for you, more in you, but you'll never reach it until you get uncomfortable. The next level of your life is hiding in the place your comfort zone told you to avoid. And if you want what's next, you have to stop letting comfort lie to you. Because the longer you believe it, the longer you'll stay stuck, and stuck isn't your story. Progress requires movement. Nothing grows by standing still. Nothing changes by remaining the same. We live in a world governed by motion, from the rotation of the earth to the beating of the human heart. Movement is the evidence of life, and progress is the evidence of intentional movement. You cannot expect to reach new places while staying in the same position. You cannot unlock your next level while clinging to your current comfort. Progress isn't a product of good intentions. It is the result of bold decisions followed by consistent motion. Many people are stuck, not because they lack talent, vision, or resources, but because they won't move. They wait, they hesitate, they look for signs, they analyze every possible outcome, hoping for 100% certainty before they take a single step. But the truth is, movement doesn't wait on clarity. Clarity often shows up after you move. Movement reveals what planning never could. It gives you momentum. It brings new relationships, new insights, new opportunities. Stagnation, on the other hand, breeds confusion, self-doubt, and frustration. You can think yourself into paralysis if you're not careful, but you can't think your way into success. You have to move your way into it. When you move, you break patterns, you disrupt the status quo. You challenge every limitation that comfort and fear have tried to place on you. Action silences anxiety. Movement creates confidence. It doesn't even matter if the first step is small. What matters is that it's forward. Too many people want to skip the awkward beginnings and jump straight to the polished result. But progress isn't instant. It's not about giant leaps. It's about faithful step, taken daily, deliberately, and without apology. Movement isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it looks like failure. Sometimes it looks like taking 5 steps forward and 3 steps back. But even then, you're still 2 steps ahead of where you were. Motion keeps you learning, adapting, refining. Without movement, there's no feedback. Without feedback, there's no growth. You can't perfect what you never practice. You can't master what you never start. Every expert was once a beginner who chose to move when they could have stayed still. Progress has a cost. It requires the willingness to leave behind what's easy in exchange for what's worthwhile. You have to let go of excuses, release old mindsets, and sometimes walk alone. But every movement forward aligns you more closely with your potential. The destination doesn't show up all at once, but each step reveals more of the path. It's revealed to movers, not watchers. Doors don't open to those who stand still. They open to those who knock, push, and pursue. You will never drift into purpose. You must decide to move toward it. The breakthrough you seek, the growth you crave, the future you imagine, it's waiting for you, but only if you move. Motion is the bridge between desire and destiny. If you want progress, don't just wish, don't just wait, move, because until you do, nothing changes, precedes clarity. That's a principle many resist because it requires trust before understanding, obedience before explanation, and movement before confirmation. But this is how true transformation works. We are conditioned to crave details, to wait for the full picture before we act. We want guarantees. We want assurances. We want the light to shine all the way down the road before we take the first step. But in the real world, especially in the realm of purpose and destiny, things rarely work that way. Most of the time, clarity doesn't show up until after faith has been demonstrated. Clarity is often a reward, not a prerequisite. People say they're waiting for clarity, but many times that's just a cover for fear. They want the outcome guaranteed before they invest the effort. But the truth is, the most significant moves in life, in business, and in calling are made with incomplete information. You have to believe before you see. You have to start building when there's no blueprint. That's what faith looks like. Stepping out on a word, a conviction, a sense that something more is calling, even when your natural eyes can't confirm it. Think about how growth happens. A seed is planted in the dark. The roots move down before the sprout ever pushes up. There's no clarity in the soil, only process, and yet the seed obeys a silent instruction. That's faith. It moves in the dark. It trusts in what it can't see. Most people want to skip the mystery and move straight to certainty, but certainty isn't the foundation of success. Faith is. If you wait for the perfect conditions, the perfect strategy, the perfect moment, you'll wait forever. Because perfection is an illusion, and clarity is a process, not a starting point. Some of the most successful people in history didn't know what they were building at the beginning. They didn't see the full picture. They just took the next right step, and with each step the path unfolded. Faith led the way. They were willing to walk in obedience without knowing exactly where the road would lead. That kind of trust changes everything. It doesn't mean you're reckless. It means you're courageous. It means you're more committed to your calling than your comfort. The need for clarity is often an attempt to stay in control, but faith requires surrender. It says, I may not see the whole staircase, but I'm willing to climb the first step. It's uncomfortable, yes, uncertain, absolutely, but it's in that discomfort and uncertainty that transformation is born. You don't get the answers by standing still. You get them by moving. You get insight by acting, not by analyzing. And with every step taken in faith, clarity increases. Faith isn't blindness. It's vision beyond what the eye can see. It's believing that the God who called you knows the way, even if you don't. So when you're unsure, when the path is foggy, when the details are few, move anyway, because clarity will meet you on the road, but only if you're walking. Your calling demands separation, not because you're better than others, but because what's on your life is different. You can't walk in divine purpose while clinging to everything that's familiar. There comes a point where elevation requires isolation, and destiny demands distance. Separation isn't punishment, it's preparation. When something is set apart, it's not being rejected, it's being refined. It's being positioned for greater use, and that's what your calling is doing to you. It's pulling you away from the ordinary so it can shape you into something extraordinary. Many people never step into what they're truly called to do because they can't let go of what's always been around them. They confuse loyalty with limitation. They feel guilty for outgrowing environments that no longer nourish them. But calling doesn't ask for permission. It makes demands, and one of the first demands is this: come out. Come out from the crowd. Come out from the voices that speak to your past but can't recognize your future. Come out from the cycles that feed your fear but choke your faith. When God sets you apart, He isn't trying to isolate you to hurt you. He's separating you to prepare you. Think about every person in history who stepped into something great. Separation was part of their story. Joseph had to be taken from his family to reach the palace. Moses had to leave Egypt before he could lead others out of it. Jesus himself went into the wilderness before he walked into his public assignment. Separation is never convenient, but it's always strategic, because what God builds in private becomes unshakable in public. You can't carry a global vision while staying trapped in a local mindset. If you want to lead, you can't think like the crowd. If you want to impact lives, you can't live just to please people. Separation reveals what's real. It exposes what you've been leaning on that can't sustain you. It forces you to hear your own thoughts, confront your own patterns, and rely fully on the source that called you. You learn to walk without applause. You learn to work without approval. You learn to stand even when you're misunderstood. And that's when your calling starts to grow strong. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in the crowd, but in the cave. That's where character is forged. That's where vision becomes clear. That's where you realize that not everyone can go with you, and that's okay. Everyone wants the glory of purpose, but not everyone is willing to go through the pruning of separation. But the truth is, what you're willing to walk away from determines what you're ready to walk into. Your calling doesn't just ask you to start something new. It asks you to leave something behind, and sometimes that something is someone. Sometimes it's a mindset, a pattern, a comfort zone, but whatever it is, if it's standing between you and your calling, it has to go, because your future depends on your ability to be set apart, even when it's uncomfortable. Potential lies in unfamiliar territory. It waits beyond the border of routines and assumptions, beyond the lanes you travel with your eyes half closed because you could drive them in your sleep. In the territory you know, everything is cataloged and labeled. The edges are taped off and nothing surprises you, but growth feeds on surprise. It feeds on the tension that snaps awake when your GPS goes blank, when the conversation drifts into subjects you don't entirely grasp, when the meeting invites you to sit at a table you've never earned the right to occupy, yet. Those moments are not invasions, they are invitations. They call you to rise, to invent, to improvise, to become the bigger version of yourself that comfort never requires. Unfamiliar territory is a crucible. It heats you, bends you, skims the dross from the surface of your character, and forges new strength in the very fibers of your being. It is also a mirror. It reveals talents you forgot you had, capacities you never suspected, and blind spots you never admitted. The predictable never makes such demands. It only asks that you repeat yesterday. But yesterday cannot carry tomorrow's assignment. When you deliberately step into the unknown, you unlock dormant neural pathways, summon fresh creativity, and meet mentors who do not frequent the safe roads. Resistance will shout for you to retreat. Call it risk, call it irresponsible, call it unnecessary pain, but risk is simply the rent you pay for discovery, and pain is tuition for mastery. Every breakthrough in science, every leap in business, every renaissance in art began with someone standing on the edge of recognized maps, squinting into uncharted horizons and deciding to sail anyway. They faced storms, setbacks, and sometimes shipwrecks, but they also found continents no one else thought existed. Your internal continents, the vast tracts of ability, courage, and vision. Stay hidden until you commit to voyages just as audacious. Unfamiliar territory asks questions comfort never asks. Who are you when titles fall away? How resourceful can you be when your usual tools are gone? Can you lead when no one knows your name? The answers, discovered in real time, sculpt confidence more durable than praise and craft wisdom sharper than theory. Familiar soil may feel steady beneath your feet, but unfamiliar ground will teach your feet to fly. Each step beyond the border widens your competence, deepens your resilience, and rewrites the narrative you carry about your own limitations. The life you want, the impact, the influence, the overflowing joy of purpose fulfilled, doesn't live on streets you've already paved. It lives in territories where the terrain is rough, the language is strange, and the landscape feels larger than your current self. Go there anyway. Push past the tree line of routine, wade into the river of uncertainty, and trust that the current, though swift, knows the way to oceans you were born to cross. Because potential is not a souvenir you collect at the end of a guided tour. It is treasure buried in places only the courageous ever dig, and the shovel is the decision to leave home. Multiplication follows obedience. Everything in creation echoes this law. The seed obeys soil and multiplies into harvest. The river obeys gravity and multiplies into oceans. The mind obeys truth and multiplies into innovation. Obedience is not a sterile rule-keeping exercise. It is the activating principle that unlocks exponential increase. Most people chase multiplication, more influence, more income, more impact, without embracing the first command, move in alignment with the assignment already given. They strategize for scale while ignoring the seed in their hand, the prompt in their spirit, the whispered instruction that seems too small to matter. Yet increase is coded into humility, and humility begins with yes. One act of obedience can become a domino that topples barriers generations long, because obedience traffics in compounding returns. A single decision to forgive can multiply peace across an entire family tree. A single choice to tithe, to serve, to mentor, to launch the idea no one understands can cascade into opportunity streams that outlive you. It was obedience that turned 5 loaves and 2 fish into overflow, obedience that transformed water into wine, obedience that made a shepherd boy a king. The pattern is clear. Respond rightly to the directive and watch heaven add zeros you could never calculate. The reason obedience multiplies is that it harmonizes responsibility with resource. When your actions synchronize with design, dormant provision awakens. Influence hidden behind locked doors swings open because obedience hands you the key. Resources drawn to assignment start locating you when they recognize you are moving in concert with purpose. Conversely, delayed obedience is disobedience in slow motion, and it invites subtraction, wasted time, squandered energy, diminishing passion. Many complain of scarcity while sitting on ignored instructions. They treat divine nudges like optional advice, unaware that the compound interest on delayed yeses is lost potential. Every moment you postpone alignment, the harvest window narrows. Farmers do not debate planting season if they want abundance. They obey the timetable written into the earth, and the earth responds in kind. Life operates the same way. Purpose has a planting season. Multiplication favors those who keep it. Obedience also multiplies because it trains capacity. Each time you submit ego to directive, your character expands, your discernment sharpens, your stewardship muscles strengthen. Capacity, once increased, attracts greater assignments, which in turn unlock greater provision. It is a virtuous cycle. Obedience begets capacity, capacity begets opportunity, opportunity demands greater obedience, and round it goes into ever-widening circles of influence. Many envy the platform of those operating on higher levels but overlook the private disciplines that built the scaffolding. Public multiplication is always preceded by personal obedience invisible to the crowd. The secret place is the incubator of expansion. If you will honor invisible instructions, visible increase must eventually manifest, because seed time and harvest were wired into the fabric of existence long before your dilemma arrived. Multiplication is not magic, it is principle. Align with the principle and outcomes become predictable. Disregard it and frustration follows. So if you crave more reach, more revenue, more revelation, search your life for the last unfulfilled directive and start there. Obedience is the shovel that uncovers buried talent, the catalyst that turns potential energy into kinetic force. When you combine surrendered will with consistent action, multiplication is not a possibility. It is an inevitability waiting for your yes.